Mother Gautier. I've come back to adore our master. Lucifer, I acknowledge you as my master, and as my own prince. I promise to obey thee blindly, to make evil, to spread confusion and hate. And if I fail to obey and serve thee, I promise to give my life to thee, to do as you will.
This is one of my favorite Killer Kids, this actress. You know, she rules. You know, this movie is so many things. Like it's a Killer Kid movie, and it's an exorcism film. You know, it's a take
you
on.
You almost blew it.
The Exorcist. No, you said The Exorcist.
Yeah.
I didn't say The Exorcist.
I said you almost blew it.
No. See, that's my workaround here. Yeah. But who's going to make a better exorcism film than the Italians or the Spanish? They know what Catholic guilt is all about.
Yes.
They know what exorcism's all about.
Yeah, they're probably like, look, guys, all right, that was
got
cute.
it.
Watch this.
Yeah, we got it.
You know?
Yeah, it seems like every anytime you ever see like an internet video where it's like actual exorcism caught on tape, 90% of the time it's Spanish. It's in Spanish, it's in Spain, or it's Italian.
It's got a built-in audience for that
totally.
type of video.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, they're the experts. Like they know what they're doing. You know,
they don't fuck around.
And this movie made me think about things in regards to the Killer Kids genre that I think I hadn't thought about in any of the other films. And it was really kind of the origin of our fear of, you know, the fear that is built in a Killer Kids story. And what I've been thinking about is, especially when these films started to come out, like this is 74-ish.
It's very early.
But the 70s was a big time for Killer Kids films, and that's coming off of the youth revolution and the hippie movement, and this new idea of kind of losing your children.
Yeah.
Your child all of a sudden coming home and saying things that you don't understand, or wearing something, or hanging with a group that you don't understand.
The innocence fading away.
Yeah. This film, and it made me think about that other exorcism film, which pales in comparison to Demon Witch Child.
I'm not sure which one you're talking
about.
I
don't know. I don't know. Who cares?
Yeah.
But
doesn't matter to me.
But about that idea of, it's an exorcism film, but yet is it really about the idea of losing your kids? And this film in particular, which also goes by the title Possessed and maybe a couple of other titles, is to me the movie is a drug movie. Because this little girl goes off and a stranger comes up and says, "Hey, would you like this?" And in the movie, it's a little doll, but it's kind of like, here, shove this in your teddy bear.
Yeah.
Take this up to your room.
It feels like an educational film.
It does. Take this up to your room. Don't tell anybody about it.
Yeah.
And what happens immediately when she takes it? She starts cussing.
Yep.
She starts talking back.
All the classic tropes.
Yeah. She starts getting effects of drug addiction. Her hair starts falling out. Her teeth start getting jacked. She starts telling everybody to fuck off. And really,
she loses her innocence.
She loses her innocence, and the parents are like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Because it happens like overnight.
It's a drug movie.
Yeah.
And really, when you think about it, and we'll get into it, but the first hour of this film, no one really dies. Which that's not to say it's boring, because it's not boring at all.
It's definitely not boring.
All she's doing is telling the truth. All she's doing to make these adults get up in arms is coming home and being like, all you want to do is fuck your boyfriend.
Why are you behaving like this? You know better than to treat Helen like that.
Why don't you go fuck your boyfriend and leave me alone?
And all of a sudden the mother's like, what is wrong with my daughter? She tells the priest something that we'll get into that is the truth.
Yeah.
And everyone wants to stop her. You know, there's a scene in the film where they talk about she's enlightened now. She's speaking in other languages. How would she know about these cultures?
She's truly enlightened.
Well, that she's truly enlightened, but she's
In a personal way.
Yeah.
Right.
She's enlightened about everybody's business, and she's letting it air out.
So in so many of these killer kids movies, and maybe in the exorcism genre as well, is some of this not about the idea of your child gaining knowledge that you do not want them to have, obviously following a group or
blissful ignorance. You want your child to be blissfully ignorant
yes.
of the entire world, and you can only
Yes.
prevent them from like knowing certain things for so long.
Yes.
And it's like, how do we keep a lid on all those things? We ban books, like what's
Right,
happening
yeah,
in Florida.
right,
We do all these measures, crazy ass ideas, like. Florida also doesn't want to look at the statue of David anymore, which is fucking hilarious.
So bizarre.
And that's the Italians again. The
Yeah.
There you
Italians
go.
being like,
Yeah.
"Hey, why don't you guys send your school out here and we'll have a tour of the statue of David and teach you all about art and symmetry."
It's a parent's worst nightmare for some parents, right? And so these films, I think, were probably horrifying for adult because it's playing into that fear of what really probably has always been there, but I think in the 60s really got ramped up.
Yeah.
This idea that, who is my kid right now?
Yeah.
Like, it's the greatest horror that it can be.
Did this movie, because I think at the time in Spain, shooting this movie, it was probably very tough to make and get the money for it. I mean, people are very religious.
Well,
there,
I would think that the success of that other exorcism film,
so close.
like I say,
It's called Heretic.
like I say, who gives a shit? Who gives a fuck? That other exorcism film, though, I think obviously that's did a lot of spin-offs from that.
Right.
But this,
It's like the Jaws of that trope.
Yeah.
that
yeah.
genre.
But to think of this movie as a rip-off of that other film is really, you're not watching, because this film has things in it.
It's very different.
yeah,
It's very different.
It's
The way
That
it
was just a
develops is
catalyst,
different.
essentially,
Yeah.
to get the
Yeah.
funding.
There you go.
The only similarity is the possessed girl. That's it. That's where it
But
starts.
she's not confined.
Right.
She is totally unsupervised and just walking around doing whatever she wants.
And she's unsupervised because all her mom wants to do is go fuck her boyfriend, which
Exactly.
she pointed out, rightfully so.
Yeah.
Right.
And this kid, played by an amazing actress, God, is she talented?
Who's also in Who Can Kill a Child.
Who can kill a child?
Tom, what's she doing?
She's
who was
unbelievable in that
Custom
movie.
made for this kind of movie. Just basically walks around this town telling people to fuck off.
Yeah.
Calling it how she sees it. And the whole fucking...
No filter.
And all the adults just start to freak out and want
My
to put her
kinda
in
gal.
therapy or
Yeah.
get a priest.
Yeah.
Just because she's walking up to him and saying, hey,
Yeah.
all you want is cock right now.
And the sad but interesting thing is the only one pumping the brakes is the priest. The priest has this angle that's really interesting that pits science against religion, the classic like bashing of ideas.
Right.
And so he's the only one who's like, no, like even though yes, I'm religious and I'm from the Vatican, we know too much about exorcism at this point to know there's a scientific method behind how we extract demons from people and how we recognize that. And I can't just do that. Like that requires training.
Right.
And so he has this logical approach, which is different from most churches that we know of and most theological ways to approach things. It's not a scientific method. So the fact that he's the one quoting science and saying there's a science that we need to respect is really interesting that of all the people, he's the one pumping the brakes on the exorcism.
I want you to do something, will you? Medicines or exorcisms, it's unimportant to me if she's insane or if she's made a pact with the devil. I don't need either magical or logical explanations. We have to put an end to this horror.
Yeah, and it plays into, again, we talk about, the hippie movement, but also the Manson murders.
Yeah.
That would have really influenced this idea of your kid getting tied in with a cult.
Yes.
So the origin of this, in this film, we've got the old witch and the rituals they're doing in the woods. And then, picking her and bringing her. The fear back then was that your kid is going to go out in the woods with some weird people and get indoctrinated into something that you don't want them to be.
Yeah.
And then they're going to come home and tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the greatest fear of all. And that's what happens to this girl.
Yeah, that puritanical witch hunt stuff never died. Like just
Never
Salem
died.
was a big
never
exclamation
died.
point.
There's a scene in the film where I think it's the cop tells another character. He says, "Kids, sex and drugs are not enough for kids these days. They want more." And I think they are really talking about that idea of what kids are getting into. And yeah, sure enough. Yeah, I mean, the evil is from the people out there in the woods who want to tell your kid things that you don't want them to hear. Boy, is this timely.
Why, she hasn't even been able to learn a little French.
And that's not all. In what you might say a mocking, impertinent manner, she questioned me about theologies, higher mathematics, and also about vanished cultures. I believe your daughter thought me a contemptible, ignorant fool, judging by her laughter.
The funny thing is, on top of all these interesting themes, is a truly batty, crazy coven witch.
Fuck yes. Fuck yes.
Who has the coolest coven to begin with, and is run by this Roma, beautiful, beyond the Valley of the Dolls, glamified woman.
Right.
And she's her hands, essentially when she kills herself to repossess another body. Yes, she's doing some wild witchy shit.
Dude.
Starting with the beginning of the movie with her trashing that fucking church twice.
What a great start. What a great start.
She's slowly, decrepitly, it's she's gonna do some praying, and she's like, meh.
That's such a great start. Throwing over shit in the church, boom,
She's
title
there to
card comes
steal-
up. She has a Hulk Hogan hairdo.
Or
And
she
it
has,
is freaky
what she
as
has?
fuck.
She has what they call a skullet. It's
It's
it's what Devin
skullet.
Townsend has.
Now, look,
Remember him?
Look, if you have hair loss because of an illness or anything like that,
Which is a very
this
metal
is
thing
different.
to have. The farther the skullet, the more metal your metal band
this
is.
is something different. This is a
No, I'm with you.
baldness of evil look,
Yes.
a skullet
Yes.
look. And when the kid also gets the skullet, which again is a metaphor for drugs, is a metaphor for what happens when a stranger gives you something and tells you to hide it in your bedroom, which again, these people are scary because they're evil fucks. This is an evil witch.
This is a Giant Dare commercial.
Yeah, yeah.
It's yours?
No,
My mother said she found it in your closet.
I don't know. One of the guys must
Must have what?
Look, Dad, it's
Where
not
did you get it?
Dad,
Answer me. Who taught you how to do this stuff?
You, all right? I learned it by watching you.
Parents who use drugs have children who use drugs.
It really is. It starts with an educational
This is
film
a
about...
Giant Dare commercial, which makes me wonder whether that other exorcism film isn't also a Giant Dare commercial.
I've never seen it, so I wouldn't know.
No,
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
No. This is the one, and
This is the one.
It has a lot to say. It has a lot to say about why we're afraid of our kids.
Great. Well said.
Totally. One thing I really liked in this movie that I thought was and I've mentioned it before. There's something really cool about how whether it's a possession or a ghost apparition, whatever you want to call it, where something moves in a very unusual way.
Right.
They do this very well in the reverse shots, like the reversal of I believe it's kind of
the walls. And stuff.
it's so cool, man. I love that stuff, and that stuff really shouted out to me in the movie when I was watching it.
I like the basic levitation. There's a jerk in it.
That levitation
very
scene
cool.
is really great.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of time they do levitation, it's always very just smooth.
Yeah, her
sailing.
torso spin is a great special effect.
Which I wonder how that went when they were shooting this movie. They're like, hey, just get in there, it's safe.
It's just split screen, essentially.
Yeah. So this film does something.
that's right.
This film does something that maybe tops that other exorcism film. First off, the levitation looks better. Secondly, the twist scene. The twist scene in this one, it's just straight up bright light. She's standing there, and then just from the waist, she just does a full spin. It's amazing.
It's lit.
It's amazing
it's lit
twist
like a
scene.
comedy in the 70s.
Yeah,
it's just full bright. Everything.
It's totally effective.
Yeah,
yeah, it's really great.
I mean, now I'm thinking about it, it was pretty cool.
Dude, it's so metal. The whole thing is so metal.
What I love is that batty old bitch, Coven leader.
Oh, she's great.
Just being like, I've been defeated by science. Like, she gets beaten by science, too.
Right.
So when she, like, it's part of her, like, confession, her, like, thing, or not confession, but her story's not checking out, you know, with the two detectives.
Right.
And then she realizes they're gonna fucking get me, you know, with science.
Yeah.
So she's like, can't get me, and jumps out the fucking window.
Fuck yeah.
But we have ways of making you talk. You can believe that.
Torture. I can stand it. The great master'll give me strength.
There are other ways. I don't think your magic powers would resist an injection of sodium pentothal. You know what that is? It's a truth serum, that's what.
I'll never talk.
Your influential friend won't be able to help you when a chemical product has taken away your willpower.
Just
Fucking
jump
cool
straight
as
out. Dude,
suicide.
so
Fucking
sick.
dead. She's just
so
like,
sick.
So fucking metal.
So
She's
sick.
so fucking dead. And they look at it, they're like,
So sick.
Shit.
You know,
not this week.
These people are in the right. I mean, this little girl, again, just telling the truth. They tell her it's going to be a great day. She says bullshit. Like they're walking in the park, they run into the priest.
That's my favorite
with one of the
scene.
best scenes in the movie. You know, she wants to ask the priest a question.
Gotta roll that clip.
She's like, "Can I ask you something?" Sure.
Do priests have the same thing as other men?
What are you referring to?
To sex.
Who's been talking to you of these things?
You must answer me. Do they have it or not?
We're the same as other men.
So you've all got girlfriends, haven't you?
But you mustn't speak like that.
You don't want to answer.
These are things you learn about, Susan. We have to learn to repress our desires.
You as well?
Yes.
Then you're either a goddamn queer or impotent.
You know, like, can I ask you a personal question?
Yeah.
Boom. You know, do priests have what other men have?
Yeah.
Simple question, makes sense.
Anatomy.
You know, do you have it? You know?
That's when I knew I liked this movie.
Yeah.
After that scene, I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I definitely am a fan.
She is an antagonist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She asks him another simple question. Are you either a queer or impotent?
Right.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
She's
And
just black and white.
She's black and white, and
Yeah.
you can see from his face
He
that she
hits him.
knows
Yeah.
the truth.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with being gay, but
Right.
to this guy, there is something wrong with it.
When you sign up for something like that, and at that time especially, it's no
his
big
sexuality is questionable.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
because he leaves his girlfriend
Right.
for the papacy or whatever you call it, for
Right.
the cloth. And then, you know, for whatever reason, she blames him for her becoming a prost, which is
an amazing side story.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
Fucking
Like
weird side story to put in this movie.
I think I blocked that one
She
out.
shows
I was like,
up.
Wait, what?
Like you know, they first they talk in the woods somewhere, and she approaches
and they're
them,
both
and
like
we get
riding horses, or I don't know what
something.
the fuck
Yeah,
they're
and we
doing.
get that
high society shit.
she's still in love with him, and he says something to her like, "We have different interests."
Yeah.
Fair enough. And then we see her.
And that
we
could
see
be-
her 30 minutes later with a red afro in a whorehouse,
But
blaming him
And
it's
for that.
hilarious.
Yeah.
And going back to the she's drinking a lot. She's fucking fucked up. She's
Right.
like, yeah, she made my life miserable.
And it's hilarious, but you can totally see this relationship in real life.
Yeah.
You can totally
You
see
can.
somebody being like, look, I think I see like whatever my upbringing is like coming out of me, and I'm like, I'm straying, and I think that I need to like get back on the right path with God.
Right.
And the girlfriend you happen to be with is wild and crazy, and you're like, yeah, she's like bringing me away from my spiritual walk or whatever your deal is. Like those, especially back then, those kind of relationship things were major problems.
Big time.
Oh, dude.
So like
absolutely.
this is like really based in like hardcore reality,
Yeah.
and so it's just played kind of funny in this movie.
Yeah,
but it's still trying to be serious.
It is. I mean, this little girl is going around telling people what's up, and their lives are just domino affecting throughout the film.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
she's been in the coven too long, and she
Yes.
just doesn't take any bullshit.
She doesn't take any bullshit.
And so now that she has
Dude.
to exist as a child again, she's like, well, I'm just gonna fuck shit up while I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm eventually just gonna go in the woods and
Yeah.
drink baby's blood.
Well, you know, she tells her mother that all her mother wants is dick. That's all she cares about. Well,
Yeah.
guess what? If her mother had been paying attention, she wouldn't have been alone in the first place to
Yeah.
be approached with the occult doll.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things that would not have happened if her mother would not be so predisposed with her boyfriend's penis, who she takes care of.
Yeah.
In one of the best scenes in the film, on top of the pre-scene, is the kill scene of the boyfriend, which
cool.
is so fantastic.
Yeah.
Should we go into that?
Please.
Let's do it.
Please.
Yeah.
The castration.
Yeah, I mean,
So
she,
good.
you know, she bashes this guy's head against the street, and then
Yeah.
she goes ahead and goes down for a feel. You know, and
She's a child.
she's a child.
You
She
know,
goes
it's
down
possessed by a
possessed.
elderly woman.
It's really an old lady,
but
but
it's the child
in the body of a young
but this
girl.
child is
Yeah.
acting her ass off. You know, hand down the pants, talks to the dead guy, goes, "Ooh, you were well hung." You know, too bad it's a waste now. Then pulls out what might be the smallest pocket knife I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Which
the,
makes
the wine,
it worse.
The wine cork, not the corkscrew, but
No,
the
but the
little wine,
little
thing
knife,
used,
the little cheese cutter, and then goes down below frame while you watch her whole body just shake
Takes
as
those
she
balls.
saws and just saws it off,
Did
wraps
she
it.
take the dick? I thought she like took the balls.
She may take the balls, but I'm sure she takes the dick.
Because I think it was more
because
castration.
the shape of the piece of Kleenex that she wraps it in
is more cylindrical.
and then gives it to.
Phallic.
So how sad is this?
Yeah. I know
She
you're-
takes the
yep.
wrapped dick,
Yep.
puts it in a small box,
Yeah.
gives it as a gift to her mother in the police
Good
station.
Lord.
And why would she do that? It's because she knows that that's all her mother wants. And that's all she wants
give
is
it
her
to you.
mother's love and approval. So here is the dick that you think about so much more than you think about me. And she gives it to her as a gift in the police station for them to, for her to open and enjoy.
Yeah.
Well, she opens it in front of the cop. Then they know. Then they know that something's really not right.
Something's afoot.
And this is in the hallway. She
or a
gets
dick.
Or a
she gets
dick,
challenged.
Yeah,
Something's a dick.
Foot. I mean, fuck. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
like so many of these things that I feel like most people who are going to watch this movie or have watched this movie over the years probably don't even notice because it's just like not well shot.
Well, it's
whatever.
campy. It's
You know,
very campy.
Yeah.
You know, whatever the case may be, the people who don't respect this movie, because honestly, I found more trash talking about this movie than I found like good reviews about this movie.
Yeah, a lot of people like to make fun of it.
That's
Like,
unreal.
because it's an easy target.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I think
yeah.
you're not paying attention. You're not watching the
Totally.
movie for
Right.
what's being presented,
Right.
which is some wild shit and ideas and
No.
like really crazy
Yeah.
storytelling.
It's a masterpiece.
But
and Asario, the director, you know, I mean, this is a name that should come up more often because he directed the Tombs of the Blind Dead quartet
All
of
those Blind Dead
films,
movies, dude.
which are really, really well respected, really
religious-
kind of iconic
religious
horror
icon,
films. Yeah,
You know, with the Knights Templar and all that.
right.
The Templars perform their sadistic rites. A virgin is sacrificed in a blood ritual. A fiery death for those who can't escape the blind dead. coming soon from your cemetery.
And they're very different types of films. They're much quieter, very atmospheric.
More old school.
Very old school, but yet when the horror happens, it does have a bite to it. And it's got a kind of a sexual bite to it too. It's got a lot of great things about it, but it's not as yappy as this film. But the yapping in this film is what makes it work.
Is a trope from this other movie.
Yes,
never heard of it. That I haven't heard of.
Right.
You know, the yappiness has become a trope of this potty mouth child, who is like, their innocence is broken. This is an easy way to do it.
Right.
You know, this costs nothing to have them just like curse like wild.
Right.
And that's just so. It takes
Yeah.
everyone aback.
Yeah.
You know, back then especially.
Yeah. In all of these killer kids films, that is like one of the beginning stages of it. And even watching Chucky cuss, even though you know it's an adult and it's just a doll, there's something about a childlike or child-sized character
just
cussing,
screaming bullshit. Or your mother sucks cocks in hell.
Yeah, it always works.
That's a good line from a movie I've never seen before.
I just made it up.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, it's an easy trope. You know,
exactly.
It writes itself.
Yeah.
I don't know if this means anything, but out of the 3 Killer Kids movies we've done, 2 out of the 3 were Spanish. I think that's kind of interesting. I just thought about that.
Yeah, it's an interesting angle too. It being Spanish, you got just as much Italian Catholicism problems and the guilt and everything that's associated with that, and they're very, very intense about it, and like very traditional people. Both were very big victims of communism too, as a result of all that stuff too in wartime.
Yeah.
You know, Axis of Power had its like kind of fingers in those two nations, like hardcore, but the Spanish angle and it not being part of the Italian industry gave it kind of like a differentiating look. Also, you know, it's cheaply made and like hasn't been well preserved. You know, there's been no real archival of this film, so they're working with dirt prints.
Yeah.
You know, so hopefully one day someone can get an even better print somewhere.
But you know what's funny?
But it's just different industry. What I'm trying to say is, Spanish industry is even smaller than the Italian industry.
Totally.
It's closer to America, but there's still a giant ocean, dude.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's like their resources are much smaller.
Yeah,
with what they're working with.
And you know, but yet it's a strong horror culture. So like Paul Nachi, if that's how you pronounce his name, who made all those great, you know, the Walpurgis Night, the werewolf films. I mean, he was like the king of horror in Spain. And his films are, you know, so loved by like you know, like
well, I think
the
that's why the
biggest horror
story's
fans.
so strong. I feel like the filmmakers out there had to compensate in some way, and they compensated with writing. Like stronger narratives and stronger stories. The scripts to these movies like totally outweigh a lot of what was coming out of Italy.
I agree, totally agree. Yeah.
And those movies are like entertaining to watch, and some of them are like atmospheric that on another level that beat the Spanish. But the Spanish were lacking in resources, and where they were lacking, they tried to compensate with literary skill.
Yeah. And like you guys are saying, I mean, they seem to have a special knack for killer kids. And this whole idea of losing your child and them going off and becoming a different person and the fear of that happening in the early 70s and then kind of going through the 70s. And then a funny thing happens in the 80s. Well, it starts to happen in the 70s as well, but it really ramps up in the 80s, is we go from the idea of losing your child because they're doing all these strange things to the idea of what happens when you do these strange things. So we go from a horror where someone goes off and gets indoctrinated, starts talking differently, dressing differently, to if you go off and be wild, you will get killed. It transitioned into that kind of horror
traditionally
as those kids grew up. And as we saw those children grow up, you know, so it's all
cause
almost
and effect.
Cause and effect.
Yeah.
It almost seems to all be coming from a parent's point of view.
Yeah.
You know,
with a strong religious background.
Yeah, definitely. So there's a weird connection between these killer kids films of the 70s, the exorcism films. Now I'm starting to feel like the exorcism films are attached to that. And then going into the more 80s slasher, like, you go from going into the woods, having sex, cussing as being the horror, then you go to, now that you've become that person, the horror is the revenge against you for becoming that person.
This is God punishing
which
you.
is very 80s.
Yeah.
Which is very like Reagan, like clean it up, you know? So there's a lot of neat things there that I started to think about as I watched this movie. And now I put on that other exorcism film as maybe there's more symbolism there with that than I once thought.
Is that Exorcism of Emily Rose? Is that the one you're
That's
talking
it.
about? Yeah.
That's exactly it. That one and this movie is really the two exorcism films to see. Yeah.
Kneel down.